The Hog's Die is brought to you by TicketClub.com, your one-stop shop for live events nationwide. Whether you're looking for game, theater, or live performance tickets, don't sweat it. TicketClub.com has you covered. So make sure you're going there for all your live entertainment needs, and make sure you're clicking over to them from the banner at the top of thehogsdie.com.
By fans, for fans, the Hog Style. And now, here's your host, Sean Conti.
Welcome back to the Hogstyes post-game show, brought to you by TicketClub.com. My name's Sean Conti. I got Steve Thomas and Jamual Forrest here with me tonight. And I don't know about these guys, but I usually say it's a pleasure to be here. Don't really feel like saying that this week because it doesn't feel like much of a pleasure. Skins got absolutely manhandled in New Orleans this week, but it is our duty to unpack it. So let's do that. Now, Jamual, I usually ask Steve how he's holding up first on these episodes, so I'm going to ask you first this week. How are you holding up after this embarrassment in New Orleans?
Well, to be honest with you, I'm glad, I'll put it this way, I'm glad we did it. We did this recording a day later and not the night of.
Yeah.
I'm doing okay. For me, it takes about 24 hours to get the loss out of my system. Maybe a shorter time than that. And, as the day went along, it was frustrating, and then, like my friends did, they made fun of me of all the tweets that I made last night. So
they were some raw tweets, weren't they, Jamual? They were some
they were a lot of F-bombs. I had to get off the phone. I had to put my phone down by halftime. Yeah. So
yep,
it was good. I mean, I'm doing good. So
good.
I mean, obviously my team could be better, but I'm doing good.
Good, Steve. Is this your experience too?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really glad I didn't insist we do Hogstyle late night because, that would have just, having to talk about a blowout at midnight would have just been the worst thing ever. So I think we definitely did the right thing. But yeah, it's out of my system now. I had to live tweet the game, and so I got all that out.
Yeah.
Right there.
Live. Well, I will say I noticed how quickly you posted your recap article, and I did the same thing. So I think both you and I were just trying to rip the Band-Aid on this one and get the recap articles over with.
Well, for the audience here, to look behind the curtain a little bit, you do enough of these analysis of these shows every week, and it's a real grind to do this. And what I found is that my mood swings with these games have really gotten a lot more leveled out than they used to be. I don't get as high. I don't get as high for the highs, and I don't get as low for the lows anymore because we're just constantly looking for analysis.
That's right.
Yeah.
So
that's exactly how I feel. One of my friends, she's a Ravens fan, and she's just like, "How do you remain so calm even when I do the podcast?" I'm just like, "Look, it's just I'm used to it now."
It's emotional numbness, is what it is.
Yeah, I have to be balanced in order to get this done properly.
Yeah, that's
it's hard,
right.
But look, we got to do it.
I think we just found the name of the show, by the way, Emotional Numbness. I like that.
let's rock. It could be a band name. Well, let's get into it. Obviously, this is going to be a tough one to get through, but we can unpack it. Steve, my understanding is we had a Jay Gruden press conference. I know those always reveal all the mysteries on the team. He always answers everything and explains everything so well. So can you hit us with maybe the big things that stood out to you big time from the press conference?
Yeah, sure. Okay, this is Jay's press conference on Tuesday afternoon that was done by conference call with local reporters. We were not involved in this because, we work for a living. But nonetheless, the Redskins sends out the transcript. So there are a few interesting quotes. And generally speaking, I think that there's three big topics they asked him about is Josh Norman. What the hell is going on with Josh Norman? They asked him about Alex Smith because we'll get to Alex Smith, but spoiler alert, he was terrible.
Yeah.
And that's kind of those are sort of the two big topics I hit him on. Injuries. Jay said absolutely nothing about injuries, so we'll have more on the Panthers pregame show, hopefully. But right now we have no new injury updates other than Peterson, Thompson, Richardson getting checked out. That's all we had. Yeah. But in terms of quotes,
yeah, I'll tell you what. If you can hit us with some, if you said they mentioned Alex Smith a lot in the conference. If you can hit on those, I definitely want to segue into the absolute ineptness of the offense. So hit us with some Alex Smith if you can.
All right. Well, they asked him to just evaluate Smith, and what he said was, we got him outside the pocket a couple times and had some pretty good looks, and it didn't work out. I think changing the launch point of the quarterback is going to be important, whether it's a quick game, whether it's outside the pocket, play action, all that good stuff. Like I said, we were pretty much one-dimensional with the straight dropbacks last night. But we did try to get him outside the pocket, which we didn't have much success, unfortunately. We have to stick to the game plan, blah, blah, blah. He goes into coach speak after that. And so that's one thing. Where's the other one? Here we go. Okay. They asked him if he's using Alex Smith for what he does best in contrast to how he wants to use him. Because sometimes that's not the same thing necessarily. Because Jay has his offense. Alex Smith does one thing, Jay does another. And so his answer to that was, yeah, a little bit. I think a little bit. I think we had to become a little bit more one-dimensional sooner than we wanted to last night. But for the most part, I think we have to continue to work with Alex and communicate to make sure we're all on the same page from what we're doing with our progressions and our reads and all that stuff. So that's a little bit of insight into the... I'm not going to read all of it because that'd be boring. You can go watch the presser for yourself.
Yeah.
But, I mean, the takeaways for me from that is he's sort of implicitly acknowledging that something was off. Number one, something was off in the protection scheme. Something was off in what Alex Smith was seeing or not seeing. And he was kind of acknowledging that in a way that he didn't want to slam the player too much. But that's what I got out of that.
Okay. And I mean, I think that, yeah, that's more or less what I get out of that too. Alex Smith's inability last night and the offense sucking is undeniable. I mean, just looking at it, it was atrocious. It was poor. They couldn't get any momentum going or anything happening whatsoever. I got a statement to make that I want to hit you guys with, and I want you guys to tell me if this is true, if it's not true, it's stupid, it's not stupid. It's kind of related to something Jamual was saying last week about picking up chunk yardage, big plays on Drew Brees and not being scared of scoring on Drew Brees because you're going to have to do it. Okay, so here's a statement. Is our offense basically based on what other offenses would consider a plan B? In other words, is our fundamental offense dump-offs and screens and these lateral rushes, checkdowns, that is like the foundation of our offense? Is it fair to say that our plan A is what most teams would go to if things weren't working?
I don't.
You want to go first?
Yeah, okay, that's fine.
It's a meaty one, I know.
I don't think so. I think this is really Jay Gruden's version of the West Coast offense, coupled with the fact that he realizes and understands that our receivers aren't particularly dynamic.
Right.
That is true. I think there's a twofold thing there, and I do think Paul Richardson had a better game. He might have been one of the few bright spots. He made some plays, a couple plays, but I really think that it's more sort of the way Jay has to call it. More so than anything, because if you notice...
Because of personnel, you're saying? Because of personnel?
Yeah, because if you notice, when we had Deshaun Jackson, D-Jax, we routinely launched it on a 9 route or on a 7 route, down the field, and Cousins would miss him half the time. But, I mean, that was just the nature of it because he had that weapon. And but listen, Jay loves the dump-offs. Jay is from a West Coast offense, and the West Coast offense is based on the idea that we will take what you give us in the short passing game, and we will keep matriculating the ball down the field. So I don't think it's plan B. I just think it's a combination of Jay being Jay and the weapons this team has.
That's fair. What do you think, Jamal?
So, I believe that I guess there's two ways to say it. I don't think it's a plan B. I do think that with the right quarterback, and this is not because people get carried away with this stuff. This is not Alex Smith versus Kirk Cousins, but I'm just saying with the right quarterback, a person who has the aggressive mindset but also understands what Jay Gruden wants out of his offense, because Jay Gruden has plays in which he'll be able to, get a guy open down the field. Or he'll be able to, get those aggressive looks down the field, or anywhere between the 15 to 25-yard variety. There are opportunities there for a team for his offense to get those type of completions. For example, I don't even remember the score at this point, but the one that was about to be a pick six, you had Alex Smith on a bootleg. And now I've never seen a quarterback in this offense, just quite frankly, whether it be Robert, whether it be Colt McCoy, Kirk Cousins, or Alex Smith, I haven't seen a person hit a bootleg, no pressure, and you have your receiver wide open, you still throw an interception that almost led to a pick six.
Yeah.
Like, you have those opportunities to get those big gains, and you'll always have those opportunities. So, in terms of a plan B, I wouldn't necessarily say plan B, but I do get it, because Alex Smith is that type of quarterback who would rather stay on the safe side than, look for those aggressive plays down the field, or maybe push the ball a little further than what he has done to this point.
Yeah.
So it's like I said, it's a little give and take. It's half and half. But wouldn't necessarily say plan B from a coaching perspective or a play calling perspective. Like, the scheme is there.
I just like to add to that the play Jamal's talking about, let's really do it justice, because it wasn't just Maurice. I think it was Maurice Harris was the receiver.
Yeah, he was out there.
He was wide open. We're talking guaranteed surefire touchdown. Nothing but green grass in front of him. And I don't know what Alex was thinking. It looked. If you watch the film of it, it looks like he went to Harris and then went away from him and came back to him.
Yeah.
Or something. He
said he didn't see him.
I just don't know how. I don't know how you can see him. That might have been the worst play I've ever seen Alex Smith in his short time here in DC. I think that was the worst play I've ever seen him.
He also ran backwards. He ran backwards about 15 yards on that bootleg too. I don't know if you guys noticed that, but he went way back towards the other end zone. I'm not sure what that was about.
Anyway, it was. I just wanted to emphasize that was an atrocious play in every way by Alex Smith. That particular play. But go ahead. Sorry, Sean.
Well, no problem. So, it leads me naturally to the question, which is, what's going through your head when you're seeing the Redskins continually stall, continually punt, nothing's happening? Last year, with a similar talent on the team, in fact, arguably worse talent in the team in some places, they are able to be much more productive against this offense. It sounds like you both might be slightly alluding to just personnel problems, but let's go deeper into it. What is this that happened?
Well, number one, the offensive line had a bad day.
Yeah,
so we got to talk about that. Trent Williams gave up a sack on a stunt. Morgan Moses got just blown, but it's like Carl Lewis running by a stop sign. Hey,
bad. This was not his night.
Brandon Scherf basically had, I think if Robbie Duncan were here, he'd probably say it was like a misread, for lack of a better term, by Brandon Scherf, which caused a sack. It looked like Scherf just didn't block the right guy. So our three top big money guys all had off days. Alex Smith, I think, got scared. Scared maybe not be the right term, but he got a little gun shy, I think, through that. His passes after that, at some point his passes were either short, just off target. He started missing reads. It's like he was seeing a ghost or something out there. Like that Maurice Harris play was one of them. So I think it was, in this case, I don't know, 75% execution on part of the players.
And big blame you're placing on the offensive line there for both inability in the rushing game, I'm assuming, and the crazy pressure on Smith.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. That's more or less where I started too.
And just to add to the before we got to this question, I got sidetracked answering one part of it. I just think that this offense in general, it's not built to withstand a shootout or a high-scoring game. It's not built like that. And what I mean by that is, even though what I said last week still stands, you have to be able to, like, that's your mindset going in. You have to be able to keep up. You can't be afraid to be aggressive against the Saints. However, when you're in a situation with this offense You have to be able to run the ball effectively. You also have to be able to pass protect, and you also have to have the quarterback that's going to be able to do what we just talked about 2 seconds ago. He has to be able to see down the field. He has to be able to hit these passes. Alex Smith, just in general, his offenses and his teams are not built to withstand a 30-point game where you need that 30-point game, or you're down by 10 plus. Maybe you're already down 20 plus in the first half. That's just something that's not capable. And to be fair, a lot of quarterbacks aren't capable of coming back from 20 points. However, given there are quarterbacks who are able to give their team chances when they're down by that much. To some degree, they don't always win it, but to give them a chance later in the game is something that's always been done. And this is not all on Alex. However, it's just the fact that when you drop back the pass, if you're limited as a passer, it just makes it difficult to withstand these type of games when you face a high-powered offense.
Yeah. I think I think the nature of Jay's play calling is another part of this, because Jay never met a shallow crosser he didn't like, right?
Yeah.
and he loves dump offs to the running backs in the flats. He loves clearing routes. He loves to scheme people open underneath. And Alex Smith, other than yesterday, is a master at finding those kind of things.
Even he was late on the checkdowns. Like, it was just so weird.
Yeah.
I don't get it. He almost got AP knees taken out of him for the rest of his career. And then a check down, or what should have been a wheel route to Chris Thompson towards the end zone. It was a terrible overthrow outside of the end zone. It was weird.
Yeah, I'm willing to chalk up Alex Smith to he had a bad day, and it happens, and we all have them, and hopefully it's nothing more than that. But I think Jamal, it really has a good point. It's a combination of the way Jay Gruden likes to call games and the talent we have. Because Jay wasn't afraid to take the occasional 3 or 4 shots downfield when Deshaun Jackson was here. Because he knew Deshaun had that extra gear and was basically always open. When he wanted to be, and so he would take that shot, but he would set those up. He'd set those up by like this never-ending stream of shallow crossers and out, square outs, and the typical West Coast offense stuff, and it's just not really happening this year, for whatever reason. I mean, I know you guys out there hate Josh Doxson. He's become like the Satan of DC or something, and there's reasons for that. I get it. I'm not trying to defend him, but. Alex also is looking and not taking the shots to some extent. And Doxson is another matter. He's not winning most of his battles. Okay, I get it. But Alex seems to be playing a bit more conservative than Kirk did, to me, in my opinion. I don't know if it's the nature of the reads, or what.
First year with the team,
Yeah, I guess. But I think Jamal really hit it. I mean, this offense isn't built like that. Like Jay just doesn't. This year, he's just not. The primary read are not a lot of out and ups up sideline, 9 routes. Skinny posts. There's just not a lot of that. They're running them, but they just aren't the primary reads. A lot of those are clearing routes, in my opinion.
So can I just ask you guys this about the offense then? Going into this season, was the philosophy of this team screwed up from the start? In other words, you pick up Darius Geis because you're obviously trying to prioritize the running game. He goes down, so you pick up Peterson to replace him. You've let your 2 receivers walk in years past. You haven't really tried to replace them. So obviously what you're going for here is the short kind of pass game and the running game, and it's not working. You've just kind of totally given up on having much of a receivers game. So this is we've now seen 4 games. I mean, was the philosophy of this team bad from the start?
I mean, the 49ers won 5 Super Bowls doing this.
Yeah, so that's a fair, that's a fair thing to bring up. It's just
they can just execute it. This is execution, okay?
It's execution and personnel.
Don't blame the play calling on the fact that Trent Williams looked like Trent Williams blew his protection scheme. Don't blame the play call on the fact that Morgan Moses looked like a traffic cone on that one sack. He looked like a huge giant traffic cone, in a white jersey.
Make fun of Moses. Don't make fun of Williams. It's too depressing to dog him. It's just too depressing.
That kind of stuff is not on the coach. I'm all for blaming Jay, because he has faults. But there were a lot of execution problems in this game. I mean, a ton of execution problems. And the stuff with Alex Smith being inaccurate, that's on Alex Smith.
Yeah.
The misreads that's on Alex. The failure to block properly. It's not a scheme thing in most of those cases. Most of those cases, the offensive lineman blew it.
Yeah. Well, it's just remarkable. I mean, how many people failed against the Saints?
Yeah, and here's just the thing to moving forward. If you want this offense, or if you want this team in games in terms of points wise and production on offense, the ground game has to be established, and you have to have win your inside matchups. Crowder and Jordan Reed has to find ways to get the ball. Paul Richardson, Josh Doctson, Maurice Harris. Maurice can actually play in the slot too, but those three receivers, they'll have to find their way into the mix, somehow. Eventually, like whenever they get their 1 or 2 targets per game, they have to just make opportunities, create opportunities for themselves and make plays on the ball. But if the pass protection is working and the run game is working, and Alex Smith is able to hit his inside receivers, whether it be Reed, Davis, or Crowder, then that's the winning formula, and it has to continue, and it has to continue throughout the game. Second half offense is non-existent, regardless of what people thought about when we had those huge leads in the first half. It's just non-existent. It has to get better, but that's how you win with this offense.
Jamal, I like to know what you're seeing with Jordan Reed, because he's having the worst year of his career by far. I don't know about the stats. I mean, I haven't looked the numbers up, but I'd be willing to say, without looking his numbers up, that this is his worst healthy year. Yeah. He had one target, one reception, 21 yards, and that was in the third quarter. He's just not producing, and it's not even that he's not producing. It's that, I mean, the man had 2 targets in the game. This is an all-pro caliber tight end. I don't know what is going on with him. What are you seeing with Jordan Reed?
So here's what I'll say on that catch, and I think all three of us can agree on this. When you saw the catch that he made with 21 yards,
unbelievable.
Yes, and there was no doubt in your mind that he's healthy enough to play. Like, you've seen that, and he's been able to play throughout the entire all 4 games. There's no question. So with that being said, there's no way in hell that Jordan Reed is what's the word, that he's not producing to what he's capable of producing. It's not a Jordan Reed thing. It's more so, well, the one criticism I'll have is the interception against the Packers. That was an effort thing. But that's not a common thing for Jordan Reed. Effort is always there, 110%. He played with a dislocated or separated shoulder in a game and still put up 10 catches for 100 yards, 2 touchdowns. I think those are the stats, but he definitely scored twice. But the effort thing, that was an anomaly. I think Jordan Reed is more so, he's not being featured enough throughout a game.
Yeah,
and
I'd agree with that.
He's also, if he's not a number 1 read, or if he is a number 1 read for Alex Smith, he's more so not necessarily being looked at, I guess, not even early. Like, it's just something that's just not being there. So what I'm saying is, I think they have to just make sure they have to force the issue, find ways to get him open. Now, if there's somebody if they're double teaming him or something like that, I think that may slow his production down, and it may prove to be the case. I don't know what they've been doing in coverage. I can't tell you. But at the same time, it's more so an adjustment that has to be made by coaches, a counter. So we're going to have to work on that.
Yeah, I don't want to get into game preview for the Panthers or anything, but I'm just looking at the targets this year through 4 games. Jordan Reed, 22 targets. Jameson Crowder, 20 targets. Paul Richardson, 19. Josh Doctson, 13. Are you ready for this? Chris Thompson, 31.
Whoa.
31 targets.
Wow. That's...
Yeah, we know that's inflated from that Colts game, but nonetheless, we know there's no misunderstanding there. Yeah. There's no misunderstanding. That's just absurd. It shouldn't be that. It shouldn't be that
right.
much.
I mean, you've got an all-pro there, all-pro caliber at least, and it's, Jay Gruden himself in years past has said the offense runs through Jordan Reed. He's the guy who's uncoverable, and yeah, I totally agree, Jamal. They need to feature him.
It's unfortunate because a lot of people, and a lot of people, for example, if they say something, if they don't see a production, they'll say that this person has regressed. And I know you were just asking a question, so I know that's not what you're saying.
No.
But it's just for Jordan Reed, his situation's a little different. And I think that's more so a coach and quarterback thing. And I'm pretty sure Alex Smith will. He loved Travis Kelce, so I'm pretty sure he would love to throw him the ball a little bit more. But maybe it's something going on in this game, or maybe the Reed progression in which he doesn't necessarily look at Reed a little bit as long as he should, and as the play is going on. So yeah, I'm shoot. I want him to produce more than anybody.
Yeah, we didn't go over stats. I don't know if you want me to, Sean, but I do want to get one stat out there since we're talking about this.
Yeah, please do.
Run pass balance. In the first quarter, 10 passes, 10 passes, 5 runs. Second quarter, 21 passes, 9 runs. In the game, and then it got out of hand. After that, obviously in the second quarter, or the second half. But I don't know if it was because Adrian got hurt so early. On the play number 2, he just got assassinated. Like kamikaze style. On that flat pass.
Yeah.
But Jay dumped the run game immediately. Immediately. The Redskins went 18 carries, 39 yards. As a team.
Jay needs just the teensiest little push to go over the edge on giving up on the run game. If he's up against Drew Brees and it even starts to look like it's going to get away from him, I think this is what happened. See,
that's what I think the flaw in the game plan was right from the start.
Yeah.
I don't think Jamal said it perfectly. Early, you can't. This offense is not one that's going to get into a shootout, particularly with maybe the best shootout quarterback in the history of the game.
Right.
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 You don't want to do that. That's not. I said in the game preview and in my written game preview, this game would be won by controlling the tempo and controlling the clock, and to that extent, the Redskins just got a F- on that effort.
Well, and let's talk about that because we haven't really talked much about defense. There's not much to talk about because it's their first truly poor performance of the season. But my goodness, they weren't able to stop anything. Drew Brees, obviously, his sickening, little end zone ceremony there to celebrate. What did you guys see from the defense, and how much of an indictment of this defense is this Saints game? In my article of the recap, I actually said I'm not going to put too much blame on the defense. It was a bad, horrible night, just like it was for the offense, but I still think they're pretty good. But obviously asking them to contain Brees was way too much to ask. What do you guys think?
I think the secondary more than anything looked terrible. There's a difference between a guy, Drew Brees, is picking you apart and openly blowing coverages.
Well, you have a Josh Norman quote, right, from Gruden?
Yeah. Oh, you want me to read this? Yeah. He was asked right up front, question number 2, for his thoughts on Josh Norman's performance. And he kind of got away from Josh in particular and just said, I think as a secondary as a whole, we have to perform better. We had some pretty good plays from time to time, but for most part, the big plays stick out. We blew a 2-deep coverage. We blew a 3-deep coverage. Those are simple from day one training camp. That for whatever reason, we have to communicate and make the right calls and be in the right spots. For whatever reason, we blew those. And he's talking without even having watched the film here. So he wasn't indicting Norman in particular, more so. But, it wasn't just these guys getting beat man-to-man yesterday or Sunday. It was these players were doing the wrong thing in the defensive scheme. Namely, in led by Josh Norman, Mr. $16 million man. Inexcusable. I don't know if Drew just had him completely psyched out or what, but for example, on the 66-yard touchdown, that was the big record-breaking pass. I watched that several times today, and that was a cover 3 scheme. Okay, because the strong safety came up, the free safety stayed back. Quentin Dunbar went deep with the opposite side, and Josh Norman, for some reason, played the flats. And either he didn't know what coverage he was in, either he thought he was in cover 2, or he just deviated from the scheme because he was convinced Kamara was going to get the ball in the swing out pass and tried to jump the route. And then, boom, realized it was a mistake and it's a touchdown. It was one of those two things. Either way, he did the wrong thing. That's on Norman, and that's not Drew Brees magic. That's the defensive player doing the wrong thing.
Jamal, what did you see from that?
Yeah, it was frustrating. I personally don't think that this is indicative of what how the true extent or how talented the Redskins defense are. I think they're still a good unit. I've always felt like they were a top 12 unit. Got to remember, and this is just a general statement. The Saints are also NFC contenders to go to the Super Bowl. And we face an elite offense.
That's right.
And this is something we face an elite offense at full strength. Well, not even at full strength. Excuse me. Ted Ginn was out.
That's right.
That's a key part to their offense as well. And I only say that because this was a true test for where the Redskins stood as a whole. And the defense it was a huge dud for obvious reasons. And one of the biggest reasons is communication. And one of the biggest reasons is also, people, doing their own thing, just like Steve said. So I agree basically with everything Steve said. Besides the fact that Norman was doing his own thing, and besides the fact that there was probably more than a couple people doing their own thing.
Yeah.
And just not, and even if they weren't, they were just lost in assignments. There was no pressure. Drew Brees had time pretty much all night outside of the one time we sent the blitz, and Kerrigan, I believe, got home.
First time this season.
Yeah.
And then promptly had it erased by a dumb penalty.
So it's just like it was just frustrating. Now I understood the initial thought to send just 4 because your interior pass rush has been working pretty much for you all season. They're the most productive unit on your defense. They had 6 sacks. They were leading the team in sacks. The edge rushers weren't doing anything for you. So you don't have to send pressure initially against Drew Brees. However, and I appreciate them giving them that test. So for them to not even make a difference, you don't have to dominate the offensive line because again, this is an elite unit. You're not going to dominate, but if you win a good portion of your matchups, you make a difference. And you allow. Look, it was just frustrating, and I expected a little bit more out of that defensive front, the front seven in general. So it was just frustrating, and I think that the front seven is what's going to carry this team, specifically this defense this year. So it's just a glimpse of where they stand against elite units. They have some work to do. It's not over. They can improve throughout the year. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah,
look, it was a bad album.
Yeah, look, we said in the preview that the trick was to get pressure with the front 4, with the defensive line without having to do a lot of blitzing. The idea being, you can drop more people in the coverage. But look, at some point, it's not working. You cannot let a quarterback like Drew Brees, who's a Hall of Famer, first ballot Hall of Famer, sit back there completely comfortable. And this man has got an unbelievably quick release. Quick
he's
release.
fast.
It's almost like we would need a speed rusher whose name in Pig Latin would be Aletgay. A guy who could come quickly off the edge and make a guy like Brees have to dump the ball even sooner than he wanted. But at some point it wasn't working, and they needed to start blitzing him. And we never really did that, and it was very odd. But I just wanted to make sure that people out there, Josh Norman is the whipping boy today for sure, amongst the fan base. But don't give Monte Nicholson a pass. He blew some. Fabian Moreau didn't have a particularly good game, I didn't think. Quentin Dunbar even, had 1 or 2 negative plays, I thought. I thought it was a sort of an overall, it might have been, Josh Norman was leading the parade for sure, but it wasn't just a solo parade. It wasn't a one-man gang. That entire secondary looked bad.
Yeah, there were hardly even flashes in the pan in this game, which is really devastating. But maybe on that note, we should go ahead and do game balls. What do you guys think? Oh, Jamal's expression was perfect. Oh my God! I think his heart literally just melted in his chest at the thought of doing
Well,
game
let
balls.
me give a positive, okay? Before we get to game balls,
Do it.
if you want to turn it a bit positive, the only positive I could realistically take out of this is that Paul Richardson showed up more so than he
For
has
like
before.
one play, you mean?
He had a couple plays where he was more aggressive in going to get the ball. He made we started to see the outskirts of the difference maker that we thought Paul Richardson could be. And so I thought that if you want a positive, and I'm reaching here, okay? I mean, I
No, I
realize
appreciate that. I respect
I'm
that.
reaching. But to me, that's what stuck out as a positive because the run game was a complete dud. Peterson got hurt and he was 4 for 6 on the day, complete dud.
Yeah.
That was the only, we already talked about Jordan Reed and Alex Smith. The one guy I thought that didn't look terrible was Paul Richardson. And of course he got hurt. He had an ice pack on his knee by the end of the game. But that would be the one positive I saw out of the offense. And the one positive I saw out of the defense, I think, I think it wasn't Jonathan Allen's best game, but I think that guy, if you fast forward 2 years from now, he's the star of the team. The star of the defense.
Yeah.
But sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to get us off on a tangent.
No, I mean,
it's fine.
yeah, maybe positive and negative is a better thing to do tonight rather than game
I'm just
balls.
telling you, I'm not giving a game ball. My game ball is Drew Brees and Traquan Smith. Okay, those are my game balls.
You gave two.
I'm giving him. I'm gonna make Jay Gruden walk the balls over to the Saints locker room in shame and give the game balls to Drew Brees and Traquan Smith.
I like that. That's
Those
fair.
are my game balls.
That seems fitting. I like how you
And
gave
I want
two
Alex
to the
to
Saints
document
offense.
that. Yeah. I want Alex to document that on the chart he has. It's on our site.
All right, what do you think, Jamal? Who's your positive and negative? Or no, I'm sorry, we're just doing positives from offense and defense, if you can.
Positive, Paul Richardson. Even though it was one spectacular catch, it just shows you the ability that he has in him and what you can do with him in the future, especially if you get the one-on-one opportunities. If it's not just Josh Doxson that can make plays in one-on-one situations, that can be Paul Richardson as well. So I go Paul Richardson for a positive on offense. For defense, I will go Jordan Reed because he helped save the interception from being a touchdown. So
You're giving I was like, wait a minute, he's giving Jordan Reed a defensive ball?
Nice.
Yeah. He did a great job hawking the guy down. I believe he made that tackle before he went to the end zone. So I give Jordan Reed a positive. Just know that if Alex Smith makes a mistake, Jordan Reed is capable of making a play and preventing a bad play from being even a worse play. So,
Hey, that counts for something.
yeah, it does.
Let's see here.
You got to have something creative,
Yeah,
Sean.
I know.
You
I'm
can't just say
sitting-
Paul Richardson again.
I know. I'm saying. Did you hear me frantically typing, trying to look up the stats to think of something, anything else to say?
I
yeah.
didn't give the stats for the game. You guys want me to give stats? Or do
No,
you
I
wanna
don't.
just bag that?
We don't want you to give stats for this game. Are you out of your mind? What do you think you're doing? Okay, I'm gonna give it to. Jesus. I'm just going to give it to Jamison Crowder, close my eyes, hold my nose, and say Crowder. He had the most yardage for a receiver on the game. Somebody in the receiving game's got to step up. It was only 4 of 8 targets, so God, that's a terrible game ball to give out. But I'm going to give it to him for the sake of being different. 5 more yards than Richardson, so there you go. Defense game ball? I abstain. Whoever fumbled on the Saints on that one drive that didn't get capped by a touchdown or a score from the Saints, whoever fumbled gets the defensive game ball from the Redskins for me. Okay.
I mean, look, and to put a cap on it also, the Redskins are not nearly the only one team that the Saints have pasted in the ground.
Right. That is right.
This is the 3rd of 5 games that they've scored 40 points on. It looks bad for us since we focus on this, but I don't know if this necessarily means that the Redskins are the 77 Tampa Bay Buccaneers or whatever year that was. They went 0-14. They had a bad day. They faced a juggernaut in New Orleans on probably the biggest day of in recent Saints history, and because you guys aren't from the Gulf Coast, but you guys need to understand that after Hurricane Katrina happened, it's hard to the city. I was in New Orleans a month after Hurricane Katrina, and the city was devastated. And it took years to recover. And the Saints, and when Drew Brees in particular, were a major part of uplifting the city and the morale of the people there. And it's hard to know that unless you were there, unless you're here where I am. But they love Drew Brees. I mean, they love Drew Brees. He is worshipped down there for a reason. And so it was destined to be a bad night, and I'd like to think that it was just a bad night more so than we're seeing just awful. So there's my positive.
Yeah. I don't necessarily disagree with that. I said a similar thing in the article. This looks a lot worse than it maybe is, although the offense is probably getting close to as bad as they've looked in these Saints and Colts games. But anyways.
Now, what I will say, though, before we get off, this offense is I wouldn't want to press the issue now because it's early, but just it is statistically when you guys get a chance, the listeners, when you guys get a chance, the stats on offense is just not up to par. Even last year, last year you were dealing with a lot of injuries, but this year's, the same thing carried over. The running game has improved, but that's a lot to do with the running back. Adrian
right.
Peterson is a hell of a back, Hall of Fame back with elite vision. So that's a good thing. However, there will be situations where you need an effective passing game. And this doesn't just come down to the quarterback. The receiving core, like the unit itself, is just not good. It's not good enough. Has to improve. You have individuals, Paul Richardson has his skill set. Jameson Crowder has his skill set. Josh Dawson has his skill set. And as a receiver in general, Jordan Reed has his skill set. But, together, like, what can they do? Where's the Pierre Garçon to Deshaun Jackson? Deshaun Jackson goes over the top. Where's the Pierre Garçon who can work the underneath at the same time and find a way to get open? But, so we got a lot of ways. We got a ways to go in the passing game. You're going to need that in critical situations. Whatever they do, they need to figure it out quick. There's still plenty of time left in the season, but you can't waste any more weeks.
Yeah, I think that's the perfect kind of note to end on almost. It's not too late, but you better figure out something quick because if nothing changes...
And the other thing here is, the Redskins have been cursed by some kind of voodoo doll or something with primetime games. They have consistently played bad in almost every Monday Night Football game. They're 2-13, I think, in the past 15.
I think it's worse. I think it's 2-14.
Okay,
A full 16-game season.
Yeah, I think you're right because that was 2-13 before the Saints game. So I think it's 2-14. They just, I don't know if it's a lack of mental fortitude or what, but this team looks awful in primetime, and particularly in Monday nights, and they lived up to that. And we can talk about all the talent and all the schemes and all that stuff you want, but the bottom line is this team needs to start showing up on primetime games. And I just tend to think that if it happens over and over and over again, it just means you're mentally weak. That you just can't handle the lights. The metaphorical lights, I hate to say that, and I don't have anything to base that on numbers-wise, but we all see what we see for these primetime games, and they just consistently crater every single time. And I don't know if it's just I don't know what it is, but that needs to stop for this team to be anything.
Yeah, something's got to give there. I agree. Certainly not going to put butts back in those seats. That's for sure. Losing under the big lights.
No.
All right. Well, we will leave it at there. Mercifully, we did a good job, guys, unpacking that shit show that was that game. So good job to us. We will be back with you, obviously, for the preview for the next one. And until then, make sure you're coming on back to thehogsty.com. We're continuing to pump out that fresh new content every day. We'll see y'all next time. Take care.